Maccabees? I know nothing about the Maccabees.
Well, the original crew, Saul Feldman was the secretary of the branch, and Morris Smirlik was active. He was president one year, or several years, and the existing executive is Sam Yanover and whoever else he can get that's still mobile. We haven't had any really official meetings because people aren't vitally interested in meetings, and so he has all the records of the minutes and that of when they did have meetings. Now Jack Krieger was our neighbor. His mother had a grocery store a couple of doors from us, and he is connected with Anshe Sholem.
And the Maccabees.
Yeah.
So you joined the RCMP. Someone, your wife was telling us.
Yeah.
When?
When I sold the business in 69 or 70, 71, 72, and my neighbor in Mount Hope gave me a clipping from the paper. Says they're looking for police for the 76 Olympics. He says, why don't you apply? So I did.
And you became an RCMP officer?
Yeah.
And where were you trained? In Hamilton?
I trained in Regina. Well, I was among the oldest in our crew, but most of the people that I worked with were in their 20s and early 30s, and there were a couple of World War II veterans and myself.
And were there enough of you to form a minyan for davening, for prayer services? How many Jews were you?
No, in Regina?
Yeah.
No, we had a minyan on the ship going over.
Going over to Korea.
Pardon?
To Korea.
Yeah.
That's
Is that right? So you were the only Jew in the RCMP?
No. I was the only Jew at that time. When I was in the RCMP and working in Toronto, there were occasions when I had to run documents that had to be hand carried, and I'd go down to headquarters on Jarvis Street, and I was amazed at the number of the size and shape and color of the Mounties, and there were several there that were wearing yarmulkes.
Really?
Yeah.
This
They
was
weren't uniform in headquarters.
Right. Now, downstairs, you showed me a T-shirt that was hanging. And you mentioned something about a group of guys who used to pal around. Talk about that.
Well, there was Dan Goldstein, Albert Boxenbaum, Morris Koza, Morris Waxman, Chester Waxman, and myself. And we all knocked around together. Dan Goldstein's wife was related to the Greens that are the builders in Toronto. So
When was this? Like in the 1950s, 60s?
48, 50. Dan was a catcher in the Jewish Softball League, and John Silver and Muff Silver were ball players in the Depression, and after the war, when they had the Jewish Softball League, they were in there too.
Where was the Jewish Softball League?
They played down at Eastwood Park over here.
Wait, there was a Jewish Softball League in Hamilton?
Yes.
This is not the one that Harvey Waxman helped organize.
I don't think he organized it. He may have been a part of it. I don't.
Yeah. So this Jewish Baseball League, is this in the 1940s?
It'll be the 48, 50, 51, 52, 54, thereabouts. Joe Cohen was the catcher.
This was a Jewish Baseball League?
Yeah.
How many teams?
4.
Were you on a team?
I was the scorer.
The scorer. What was the best team? What team won the championship?
Sometimes it was International Iron, sometimes it would be somebody else. Well, they played from May through to late September, down there once a week, and there was no charge. There was a grandstand there at the time, and they passed the hat around. People would throw a nickel, a dime, or a quarter in. That helped pay for the referees.
So you and these 5 guys are palling around in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the State of Israel was created, was
Yeah.
founded? Was that a big deal here in Hamilton?
I can't say it was a big deal, but it was a deal. See, Hamilton had a mixed bags. There were people that were Zionists, and there were people that couldn't care less about Zionism. And so it's a matter of where your interest lies. You had the Jewish National Workers Alliance, you had the Arbiter Ring, and the Mrs. Zvonkin was with the Jewish National Workers Alliance, and Sarah Laskin, I think, was, I couldn't remember what group she was with, but they were an active bunch. They were active before even the Hadassah got a grip on Hamilton.
The Workers' Alliance, were they communists?
I think they were socialists.
Socialists?
Yeah. The Arbiter Ring would be labor. I don't think there were the odd Jewish communists, but not per se as in an organized fashion. It was because they believed in the principle.
You did have Jewish communists in Toronto.
Yeah.
UJPO, United Jewish People's Order.
UJPO.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Dan Goldstein's family had some connection with them.
So when you used to pal around with these 5 other guys, what kinds of, were you like a gang, or what kinds of things did you do? Like go to Dairy Queen for an ice cream, or?
There was no Dairy Queen. No, we schmoozed around, had fun. On Sunday morning we'd have a scrub touch rugby game up at the reservoir above Aberdeen Avenue. And they would play ball at Victoria Park, on a pickup, and then when they had the organized, it was down at Eastwood Park. And I think it's the one that Harvey Waxman, I think, is interested in, is the current Jewish softball league, if it still exists. They play behind George R. Allen School.
That's the one.
But that's 50 years later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So did you guys go to shul?
Well, we did go to shul when it was time, but I don't think too many were going every week. See, on York Street, which is greatly changed since they revamped it, the Jewish population was quite concentrated. They were on York Street between Queen right through to the market. And there was, the 3 butchers there, and there was the fish market, and Yaffe's had a grocery store, and Rosenberg's had a grocery store, and the Caymans had a variety store.
How much was a Coca-Cola?
A nickel when I was a kid.
Then it went up to 7 cents.
Yeah, well, it went up to 7 cents because the province and the feds got greedy and started sticking tax on it. You could go to the show for a nickel, and then it went to 6 cents and 7 cents. In there, I think, is some depression glass that for an extra dime you could get when you went in, you got a glass from a set. And if you went every week, you could collect the set. So there's the odd piece in there.
Were there any Jewish criminals in Hamilton?
If they weren't criminals, they were associating with criminals. I'm trying to think of who.
Wait. While you're thinking, were there any Jewish prostitutes when you were growing up?
I couldn't really answer that, but a lot of the men enjoyed gambling. Either cards or they played the horses. I'm guessing there was the odd lady of easy virtue. I think they did it more for friendship than for exchange of money.
Right.
Did you talk about the, did you talk about Crescent Oil?
Which?
Crescent Oil.
Well, Crescent Oil's on Cannon Street, and there was an upstairs there, it still is there, and that was a club room. So they had poker tables, and then they had a closed-off room where people that wanted to play in private for different stakes would have this room in there.
Was it a Jewish place?
No. The fellow that owned it ultimately became an MPP, an Ontario legislator. What the hell was his name?
I don't remember, but
Yeah.
the Jewish men went there to gamble.
Yes, some did, yeah.
And it was next to the synagogue.
Yeah.
Next to the synagogue that was on York Boulevard.
It wasn't next to it, it was a block away.
A block away from Cannon Street Shore?
Yeah.
So you used to go to Minion and then you go gambling?
Well, it depends. I guess when they went to shul, they didn't bring money.
And you can, when you're growing up in Hamilton, you can get a good schmaltz herring if you wanted, right?
Yeah. Well, that's Mrs. Rosenberg had them in the barrel still. And when I would go with my mother, she would have a long fork that the store had, and she would fish through the barrel till she got the one that met her specifications. So there was schmaltz herring and there were milk herring.
There were which?
Milk herring. The male that had the milt.
LCH.
When in Yiddish it was milk. It was milt.
And what would your mother do?
Well, with the milt, she would crush it and make a marinade of it. And when she would put the herring down in a jar with the milt and some onions and spices, and that would be pickled herring. I don't think they use milt pickling herring. I think they use vinegar straight, but she used a little bit of vinegar. And the odd time she would broil herring. We'd have that on Saturday evening.
The community as you're growing up is a relatively small community in Hamilton, right?
Well, the paper circulation was approximately 700. He printed more than 700, but I think he bought stamps for 700.
Did you know most of the people?
Yeah, I knew most of them, yeah.
Beautiful. I don't know what you spoke about and what
No, of course not, because you never watched the
you
video.
didn't talk about.
Well, but the thing is, I'm getting more stuff here. Like, why don't you just, ask what you want to ask, even if I already asked it. It doesn't matter, because there's new stuff comes out every time I'm here.
Yeah.
Well, what shul, what synagogue was your family connected with one?
With Beth Jacob.
With Beth Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah. And my mother's uncle, who would be my fetter, was a member there, and he's a Cohen. I don't ever remember that he duchen, but he was a Cohen. That would be Goldie Robin's father, and Esther's father. And Marion Levy, that was married to Harry Levy. Marion Levy and Ruth Lewis were sisters from his first wife. And Sam Garshwitz was about the first Jew that came to Hamilton from Europe. And so he was the beacon that a lot of them followed to come to Hamilton. That's how they happened to land in Hamilton.
So who is Fran Garshowitz? Was that his daughter?
No, that's my cousin.
It's another one. It's another branch.
Wait.
Fran would be my mother's brother's daughter.
I want to go back to Fetter Sam, though. What was Fetter Sam over in Russia?
Oh, in his young day, I guess they didn't have too many Jews in the military, but he was a Cossack at one time.
There's a beautiful picture of him in that uniform.
this is the first time anyone talked about the history of the Hamilton Jewish community. Like, how did Jews first come to Hamilton? Are you telling me it was from the Garshowitz?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Like, he was the first Jewish settler in Hamilton?
I can't say he was the first, but he had a lot of family in Russia, the Ukraine, and they were communicating, and I guess he told them that this is the place to come. They came. There were Jews there before him, because I'm sure that Anshe Sholem is older than that.
Well, yes, because Anshe Sholem, I mean, you're talking about the first Jews in Hamilton are here, recorded here, in I think 1852 or 1854.
So he would have come in the 1905, 1908.
From Russia.
Yeah.
And you had German Jews who came much earlier, and hence the temple.
Yeah.
There's extensive documented history on Fetter Sam. Samuel Garshowitz. There is one of his grandsons has done extensive genealogical work on him and all the photographs. And it's another great story of how he came over illegally and he jumped ship and swam in to Halifax.
Isaac Waxman is a Polish Jew.
Yeah.
And he lived on Harriet Street, which is below York, and the Chester and Morris are his sons.
1939, the war breaks out.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of Jews from Hamilton who sign up?
Well, as many as that were fit and were able, yeah. For our size, I think they had a very good proportion.
Do you remember the names of any of the guys?
Yeah. Well, Sam Levy, Ziggy Goldberg, Al Boxenbaum, Earl Gaines. I guess he was a Ginsberg at one time.
Gaines. I never realized that Gaines might be Ginsberg.
Yeah.
There used to be a guy, Gaines, who lived across the street from me in Dundas.
Sheldon?
Don't know his name, but...
Your brother?
Hmm?
Your brother?
Yeah,
Bob?
pardon me?
Bob? Bob signed up. And
Yeah,
Alex?
my brother Bob was a doctor. He was in the military. And my next older brother was in the Air Force. And Boxey was in the Navy. Ziggy Goldberg was in the Navy. Max Matchin was in the Army. Chuck Matchin, I think, was in the Air Force.
So you knew all of these guys?
Oh, yeah.
Matchin was my neighbor. His wife still is my neighbor.
And many of them became the Maccabees.
Yeah.
So this Sam Garshowitz, he was Goldie Robbins' father. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Okay, because we don't have him in our personality section. We should probably get a bit of a description. Can you tell us about Sam Garshowitz, everything you know about him?
Well, he was the elder. He was related to my grandmother. How was Slover related to him?
I don't know, but that's something to be found out just looking up the genealogy.
Yeah. But there were several Sam Garshowitzes. There was my Fetter Sam, and there was my Uncle Sam, my mother's brother.
But Fetter and Uncle are the same.
Well,
but these are two different people, right?
Yeah, but you usually refer to a Fetter as an elder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about the Sam Garshowitz, the more interesting one. Can you just tell us about him? Like, what is he known for? What was he?
He had a second-hand store on James Street North. It's now Marchese Pharmacy. And he had 2 children by his first wife and 10 children by his second wife. So he was known for his progeny, and I guess he made a living. So that couldn't be bad in the Depression. He would buy and sell. He would sell used furniture and tools and buy. If somebody was broke on a Friday, they would bring it. They didn't pawn the stuff. They would sell it. And if they wanted it, they bought it back.
Talk about what he looked like, Morley.
Pardon?
Talk about what he looked like.
Well, he was very distinguished. He had high cheekbones, and as an older man, he had a bit of a mustache. He didn't have a beard. And he sat in the Beth Jacob about halfway up on as you face the bima, he was on the right. And my grandmother, my mother's mother, sat upstairs in the ladies' balcony on opposite. And Mrs. Kaufman, Dan Kaufman's mother, was up there. And Dan Kaufman owned the florist shop that was the Royal Florist at one time. And Harriet Kaufman married Morris Smerlick.
Did you go to a Jewish school, like an afternoon school or anything like that?
I went when the community center opened up and they had a school there. I went, and Mr. Katz, I took a little bit of Yiddish there. I didn't apply myself, but the little I do, I got from him.
One more thing I want to say about Fetter Sam, because he was still alive when I met Morley. This was very, very impressive man. At that time, he was in a wheelchair, and they would sort of roll him down closer to the bima. He still had an incredible head of hair, white hair. And that man has his progeny, as Morley says. They are, as a family, a powerful family. A large family.
And close.
Had children. Very, very close.
We're here in Hamilton.
Hamilton, Toronto, a few of them are scattered around now. But they've all been influential and involved in the community.
Can you name a few of them?
Well,
Milt Lewis would be a grandson.
Linda Morris.
Hmm?
Linda Morris.
Yeah. I think Neil and James Morris's father had a tire rebuilding shop on King Street.
And yeah, there are numerous grandchildren still in Hamilton, and and great grandchildren. But the only children who are alive would be Esther,
Margaret, Goldie.
Margaret lives in Detroit.
Yeah.
Goldie Robbins, and Dave Garshowitz, who's in Toronto.
Yeah.
No, there's Joe. There's another one.
No, Joe died.
There's another one. Willie.
Yeah, Willie's alive.
Willie is,
yeah.
surrounded. But it's a very interesting, dynamic family.